What's it all about, Alfie? Hey, oh! Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining from. Hey, it's Friday. That's something to celebrate. Friday, and it's time for the Classic Guitar Rock Daily Update for this Friday, January 19th, the year 2024. You know, a few weeks ago, I wrote 1993 on a check. How does that happen? I mean, I was off by 30 years, something like that. I don't know what I was thinking. But here we are. And we've got some news to get to. Again, feel free to chime in. You can chime in the chat, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, or here on X. And then what I'll do is at the very end, we'll share any of those comments or questions or insults that come through. So what are you waiting for? You know, we hear a lot from Sammy Hagar. Sammy Hagar is, if there's a microphone around, Sammy Hagar is going to show up, right? And I'm a Sammy fan. You know, there's the ongoing Sammy versus Dave argument. I tend to land on the Sammy side just because I like Sammy more. And I'm not saying that Sammy era is better than Dave era. I've long said the secret to enjoying Van Halen is you just treat them like two different bands, right? There's the Dave era, there's the Sammy era. They're both awesome. There's no reason to argue. But in terms of personalities, I've always kind of been more in the Sammy camp than the Dave camp. And Sammy is always out talking, and he's been talking crap about Dave, and we just have never heard much from Dave. Well, Dave's kind of been talking the last few days, and he's got a few interesting things that we want to go over. The first and foremost, and possibly the most entertaining and troubling, is Dave's assumption. That's not the right word. Dave's assertion that Sammy Hagar has been sex probed by aliens. I mean, that's his theory. And it is true that Sammy talks about, he believes that when he was a teenager, he was, I don't know if abducted by aliens is the right term, but he had some type of extraterrestrial thing happen when he was a teenager. And I think Dave's maybe just tossing some barbs back because Sammy has been tossing them towards Dave, and Dave has been pretty silent, but Dave's finally talking about it. Quote, I know that when you're abducted by aliens, you get sex probed. I am compelled to solicit this sordid subject in an effort to explain Sam Hagar's conduct. For the last 10 summers, I haven't said a single syllable about him. Not one. I defy you, and in the face of a constant fart gas aimed in our direction here at the Mojo Dojo, Diamond Dave Laboratories, that's the way Dave talks, and I think we've arrived at both the technical and the medical answer that may explain some of Sammy Hagar's conduct and his constant spew of diarrhea vitriol in our direction. Sammy Hagar was abducted by aliens, and he was sex probed. Okay, end quote. So we got that. But what then he goes on and says, I really have no idea about how aliens would sex probe you, but he says, quote, what I do know with absolute accuracy is that if you take a half of a popsicle and you jam it into a cassette tape player, no matter how carefully you extract it, that tape player will never play the same again. No matter how carefully you try and fix those delicate little parts, and it'll get worse, and it'll seem like the singer that you used to be will stop making sense whatsoever. A lot like Sam, end quote. So there you go from Dave. Dave's response to several things that Sammy has said over the years. Also, Dave admitted to having a $92,000 cannabis bill. He smokes a lot of the reefer. I mean, 92,000. He says it's completely legit now. It gets delivered, it gets taxed. And he says the reason the bill is so high is that he used to keep track of it on a Post-it note, and he lost the Post-it note. So that's why uh, the thing is. And so here's another great quote. I just love his quotes. Quote, "It's all above board. It's taxed." Um, he noted Roth claimed his running tab was kept by the dispensary on a Post-it note that got lost for years, which is why his bill eventually climbed so high without payment. Quote, "Who becomes a fireman? A kid whose dad is a fireman. Who becomes a doctor? A daughter whose dad's a doctor. And who loves Post-it notes for 7.5 years? Somebody who grows pot." In quotes. Okay, one last gem from Diamond Dave. And I wasn't aware of this, but this is about the relationship between Eddie and his brother Alex. Alex, of course, the drummer in Van Halen. David Lee Roth claims Alex Van Halen used to drive Eddie Van Halen effing crazy when the two were bandmates. In a recent post to YouTube, Roth detailed conversations he used to have with the Van Halen guitar god. Quote, "Dave, I effing hate my brother. It's why I effing drink." I'm cleaning it up because this is a family show, guys. "Dave, I effing hate my brother. Give me another beer." End quote. Roth noted that Eddie tended to blame everybody else for personal problems, something that David Lee Roth admits he does that too. But he insists that Eddie's tension with Alex was real. Quote, "Al drove his brother effing crazy. He's a big bully," Diamond Dave declared, adding that alcohol often played a role in the brothers' disputes. Quote, "Al weighed about 20 pounds more, drank between 2 and 6 packs of Schlitz malt talls liquors a day, and at the height of his drinking, they had to put in a special industrial refrigerator in the guest house at Eddie's studio. And they would just have the liquor store keep that stocked for them." Alex gave up the sauce in 1986, so he's been sober since 86. Eddie, not so much. Eddie had a very public battle with alcoholism before getting sober in the early 2000s. Guys, have I ever told you? It was sad. It was sad. I saw Van Halen on that ill-fated reunion tour they did in like 2003 with Sammy. 2003, 2004. It was sad. I wish I hadn't gone to it because Eddie was at the height of his struggles with alcoholism, and it showed. I mean, he didn't play good. He didn't look good. And you know, the guitar solo spot that we're all used to watching where Eddie comes out and does his magic. Well, he, for much of the time, just rolled around on the floor, letting his guitar feedback. And it was just, he looked terrible. He wasn't playing. It was sad. So yes, he had a very a challenging struggle with alcoholism. Eddie says in 2015, he said, "I was an alcoholic and I needed alcohol to function. I started drinking and smoking when I was 12. I got drunk before I'd show up to high school. My ninth grade science teacher, he could smell the alcohol and he told me, 'Don't drink anything you can't see through.' And I was like, 'So vodka?' And he said, 'Yeah,' which was great because that was my drink. I'm not blaming my father at all, but he was an alcoholic too. So in our household, it was normal." End quote. So, some interesting things from the mouth of David Lee Roth about Eddie, about Sammy, about his own personal cannabis habits. We don't hear a lot from David Lee Roth. And of course, there's always been this back and forth between, well, I say a back and forth. This mostly comes from Sammy. Dave doesn't say anything about it. But Sammy invited Dave. You know, Sammy's doing this Best of All Worlds tour that starts here in a couple months. It's basically his tribute to Eddie Van Halen. And he's invited Dave to come up and sing a couple songs. But he's wanted everyone to understand this is just Dave coming up and singing a few songs. Okay, he's not going to join the tour. He's not going to play a whole set. No. They're not touring together. They tried that once before, and that was not a good thing. And so Sammy just reemphasized that Dave is invited to come and sing a song or two. They're not friends. Okay. They don't like each other. Judas Priest has released Crown of Horns. It's the third single from their upcoming album, Invincible Shield. Crown of Horns. Is that a play on Crown of Thorns? Or is it a play on the Green Manalishi with the two-prong crown? Is a prong and a horn the same thing on a crown? I have many questions. I haven't watched it yet. Normally, a professional journalist would have watched the video before he comes on and talks about it. I have claimed to be a professional journalist, so I'm a fraud. So I fit right in with journalists. Anyways, new song, Crown of Horns. As soon as I'm done, I'm going to go check it out. This, of course, coming off their new album, which is set to come out March 18th. And the new album is Invincible Shield. So here's the latest single. This is the third single already from Invincible Shield. And the two previous songs, they're good. I like them. There's too much of the... You know of my disdain for the overused double bass drums. There's too much of that. But other than that, sounds pretty good. In the Kiss department today, Paul Stanley knows that Kiss's recent Avatar announcement was met with skepticism and outright hostility by some fans. I was not skeptical or hostile. I was dumbfounded at the stupidity. But he says, hey, that's the wave of the future, right? We got to embrace all of these things. He says, quote, one thing that's interesting is people, I think, perhaps even understandably, got the wrong impression initially of the avatars, the Star Child says, because at the garden shows, he's talking about the final shows at Madison Square Garden, we wanted to give people a glimpse of some of the things or one of the things that's to come. But the avatars are really in their infancy. They're far from where they'll end up in terms of look and purpose. The purpose ultimately is not that we're being replaced by flying avatars. It's just another way of diversifying what Kiss is. Translation, it's another way to make a buck. They're not even going to come out till 2027. And I stand by my prediction earlier. The avatars are never going to happen, guys, because they're stupid. No one wants them. Okay, they ain't going to happen. One last bit. All of us Rush fans have been holding out hope for there being, I don't want to call it a Rush tour, because without Neil, they can't really call it Rush, but they could call it Geddy and Alex play the music of Rush or something, right? So we've heard some things that made us kind of excited that, hey, this is going to happen. Then when Alex was on Eddie Trunk 2 weeks ago, that kind of dashed everyone's hopes because Alex made it sound like, no, I have no desire to tour. I don't want to do that. It ain't going to happen. Well, now there's another interview where it's like, well, maybe it's not as doomed as we thought it was. Alex talks about how busy Geddy is. He was able to get out and Geddy's been doing this My Effin' Life book tour, and Alex joined him on a few of those, and it sounded like he had fun. And he said that kind of got them thinking again about going out and doing stuff. So Alex tells Greg Prado, who's a journalist, and he talks about how busy Geddy is. He's got the book thing going on. He's got his whole he goes on interviewing about his baseball collection. He's got all kinds of stuff going on. And Alex says, quote, when he's ready, he always says, come over for a coffee and we'll go down to the studio and bash around a few notes. Yeah, call me. And so far he's been so busy. But I think maybe in the new year, and this is the new year, maybe soon we'll find the time to sit down and see what happens. Excuse me. Maybe nothing happens. Maybe it's not there anymore. Maybe it's going to be amazing. I don't know. We'll see. Honestly, it's not a priority for us. We're happy in our lives. So it's not like we need to go back to something. And that's my fear, that if that would be the expectation. This is like Rush too, but by necessity, it has to be something different. And it can never be Rush without Neil. It can never be Rush. That's it. It's over. but you never know what can happen. So we'll see. So that sounds like maybe we could see something happen. I love Rush. Okay, guys, I love Rush. They're probably my favorite band. But I will also say they lost me with Roll the Bones. Okay, I was in there. All the changes, going from the kimonos, right, the bathrobe era through the skinny tie era to the drowning out Alex era of Power Windows when you couldn't even hear Alex's guitar because it was all keyboards. I hung with them through Hold Your Fire. Presto came out. I liked Presto. I thought Presto was a pretty good album. They lost me with Roll the Bones. And I just haven't been able to get into the albums since then. But up until that point, love Rush. Still love Rush. Still listen to that stuff all the time. Like I said, they're my favorite band. I'm not a Rush hater. I love them. But I'm also a realist. And as a health professional, I have to say, Geddy's voice is gone. Okay. Alex has arthritis. Are we just being unrealistic to expect to hear them go out and do another tour? Is that realistic? Is that fair for us? These guys are both 70 years old, I think, right around 70. They've done this for a long time. They've got families. They probably just want to retire. And I'm okay with that. Okay. I'm just going to throw that out there. I don't mean to be, peeing in anyone's Wheaties here. I don't mean to be raining on your parade. I don't need to be negative Nancy, but we need to be realistic about Rush playing again. And when you see the recent performances, like when they played the one-off performance at the Taylor Hawkins thing, it's great to see them, but Geddy's voice is done. Okay. It is what it is. Got a few comments here. Let's share those really quick. This was me talking about, I was talking about Eddie when last time I saw him, how bad he was. Just he was in a bad state, and I was sad, and I wished I hadn't seen it. Bruce K chimes in, Jimmy Page was a mess when I saw him with The Firm. And yes, if you find footage of that era, Jimmy has had his struggles with substance abuse, and he doesn't sound great during that era. I agree. I didn't see him live, but I've seen footage of him with The Firm, and it ain't good. And then Bruce also says this. He's trying to bring me back from the ledge here. He says, listen to Roll the Bones when you do a long travel in a car. Bruce, here's my promise. I'm going to do that because, to be honest, I haven't listened to Roll the Bones since it came out. Okay, when did it come out? 93, 92, 91? Whenever it came out, 91 or 92, I listened to it a few times and I put it away. It didn't do it for me. That song with the rap section in the middle, I just thought they jumped the shark. Haven't been able to come back since. I've tried to listen to stuff since, and it's not bad. Okay, it's not bad. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying they left me. I didn't leave them. Okay, but up through Presto, I mean, I was their number one supporter, avid fan. Hey, Bruce, thank you so much for your comments. Thank you to all of you for tuning in for the update. Have a great, wonderful, safe weekend. I will be traveling all next week. I will be out of town. If I can do some updates, I will, but I'm not sure I'll be able to. So it may be hit or miss. But thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you next time, whenever that will be. Live long and prosper.